Okay, now how do I get to share my screen?
So you can unmute first of all.
Okay.
Well, no,
I'm sorry.
That again. Hit that audio button. You got this. Okay, hit share. All right. Why is it doing that? Just go ahead and hit entire screen. I want to see what happens. That button. There you go. It's not going to let you do it. That's really strange. Hit share and hit share down there.
He's already on screen.
Hit open system
Yeah,
settings.
he's just trying to get his desktop. Richard,
Yeah.
you have to give it to him? Do you have to make him?
I've already set it up where anybody can share,
Okay, good.
so he ought to be able to do that. Why don't you quit out of Zoom
Okay.
and reopen it?
Oh, that changed.
Okay, now reopen it.
Join,
Which?
join.
Join. Okay.
Okay, let's do this. Just close Zoom, totally close it.
Mr. Jonesy.
Because it's asking us to do too much.
Went to the
Zoom Workplace,
UNT graduation
pull down,
yesterday.
close,
Right.
quit.
They make everybody that comes in there that have backpacks, they have to wear clear backpacks. I was like,
Okay, go to your
they've
browser.
gone too far with some of
We're
this
gonna
stuff.
do it
I
through
feel that way
the
too.
ACD.
I really do.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know what university we're going to be doing that.
down to the join the meeting button,
We're
because
doing
this
a
has it all set up
demonstration
where you
of,
can.
what's called the
Get a new
Lumen
mouse
software.
to do this.
Allows you to
Scroll.
do some fancy
join me.
kind of video presentation projection, but with like masking and other cool things. But we use it a lot for our
Okay.
video walls that we build.
Open
Because you
light.
can adjust it depending on how big or how small the video wall is, or if there's gaps in between, or all sorts of cool things with it.
Join.
You know what else was interesting? They read off all the names
Okay.
and they did it with AI.
Okay.
And everybody had to log in ahead of time and
just
help phonetically
hit the
spell out
right
how they
button
wanted
on
to do
that.
it, and they
We
could
don't
test it
wanna add
until
anything.
They were happy with it.
voice got it right.
Yes.
And then as
No,
they
just
came
continue.
up to go through the line, they all had a card with a QR on it.
Now,
Goes on
share
it.
and see if it'll allow you to
Hand it
share.
to the person who would put it under there, and so when they
Think
walk
we've been here
across, it will
before.
get all those correctly pronounced.
That's actually pretty clever.
It actually worked really
That's actually
well,
pretty cool.
because there's always some hard days in there. It's
Oh,
just-
yeah.
Optimized for video sharing.
Well, I know that on mine,
Not
I've
everybody's a
had
John Jones, you know?
I like, because I go by Jonesy at work, but I've had to go on mine and like tell it it's Joan and Z, because if I just put it in there by normal, it's
It's a
John.
Windows computer? No, it's an
Yeah,
Apple.
yeah, right.
M3
So, yeah,
Air. MacBook Air.
Phonetically,
So it's, okay.
but it's nice that you're able to, you can change it until you get it right, that's how you want to hear
And
it.
that's a great way to keep everybody in order, especially if like someone happens like not show up, now they're out of order.
Hello?
So that everybody's got the card, so they just put, as they're,
Richard, can you hear me?
you know,
Yes, can you hear me?
that way. the
Richard, can you hear me?
Right,
I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Clever way to do it.
Richard?
Why?
Kim Baker. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, barely. But I wanted to say you have to go into the system settings and approve Zoom to be able to share your screen.
On which computer?
The computer sharing.
Anybody catch that?
Yes.
It's in privacy and security on the left-hand side.
Yes, do we, whose computer do you put that on?
But we need it on Steve's.
Is it on Steve's?
Yes, the computer that's sharing the monitor.
Okay.
So you don't need to do it on Richard's.
Yeah, I thought mine was already set. So,
Oh, you were just seeing it with that.
right, so under settings,
Under settings, and then on the left-hand side towards the bottom, privacy and security. And then I want to say the next step is screen monitoring.
Yeah, it's under screen and system audio recording.
You'll need to restart it. Usually if you just try to start it, it'll take you right there.
Yeah, usually it'll prompt you. We switched over to Cisco VPN, and it prompts you at the very beginning. Yeah, I know. That's how I feel. But it prompts you, at the very beginning. But we've had a couple of our users just like close that window and skip over it, and they're like, the VPN doesn't work. And I'm like, yeah, of course it doesn't, because you skipped over the step that told you not to skip over.
What's going on now?
It's funny too, because I like put together those keynotes, like step 1, step 2, step 3. So my first question is, did you follow the keynote exactly? Did you follow the steps exactly? Which I get one or two answers. Yeah, dude, who do you think I am? Or number 2 is like, there's a steps?
Mobile pass.
okay, now you can
Hit share?
hit share. If
The
that's the one
thing
you
is
want.
cut off, they have it
Got
formatted
it.
wrong on the back side.
Is that the one you wanted to share?
You get
Yes.
immediate feedback saying that you can see it here.
Well, we had open VPN. We were using open VPN.
Well,
I didn't
Join.
have any reasons wrong with it.
No.
The
Hey.
mothership
Don't show
decided to
this
switch
again.
over to this, so we're like,
You got
oh,
audio
fine.
with this.
Right.
So just hit later, I guess.
Okay. Okay, so I need to get this up.
Yeah, bank client's the one doing Cisco.
Yeah, I've
Work
also,
with Cortex.
I've not had the pleasure. I can tell you on
That's the
Cisco.
thing that's constantly
you-
scans your RAM for.
Oh,
So,
nice.
you know, it's like, I want that on my machine.
I can say, one thing I noticed with Cisco is if you close the lid and then open it again, it has trouble trying to reconnect again. And the other one is
like we're good to
people
go.
close their lid and then go to another building.
Sorry to interrupt. I think we're ready.
Hey, Steve.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You need one of
Okay.
these?
Okay,
Go, Steve, go.
so you called me a long time.
It's close enough.
Oh, it's close.
You refer to me as a longtime member. I kind of don't feel like a longtime member. And I don't know any of you very well. So let me introduce myself. I'm a retired software engineer, photography enthusiast. So as I understand it, photography enthusiast is a photographic industry marketing term for an amateur who pays extra for premium gear, and that's definitely me. I'm a Celtic music fan. Everybody knows what Celtic music is. And my first Apple product was a Mac II that I got.
Which one? CI?
What's a Mac 2?
The original large Mac 2?
Yes, basically the first one with slots.
030 or 020?
Both, actually.
Both, okay.
So the first one was the 6810, I guess.
Yeah.
And then something happened to the motherboard, and they said to fix it, had to replace it. So we got the 020 motherboard at that point. Anyway, so I got that the first one shortly after it was introduced, and let's see, what was I going to say about that?
That's different from
Yeah, oh yeah.
MacBook.
Well, so I'd been basically watching the progress with the Mac since it was introduced, but I didn't consider it to be a real computer. It didn't have slots, so it wasn't a real computer. So when the first one was introduced with slots, I got one shortly after it came out.
Yep, you're right.
And that's when I first came to Apple Core, back when it was down at the InfoMart.
There you go. That's a long time.
Yes, and that was a very much bigger deal than it is now, though it's kind of hard to tell because Apple Core wasn't the only thing meeting at InfoMart on that day, as I recall.
Texas PC, there were 7 users groups that met together,
Okay, yeah,
and we would have a total of about 5,000 people on Saturday.
yeah. But I know we had several rooms and lots of SIGs and everything going on.
Yep.
But then I got in a master's degree program and got kind of busy and didn't come. And the Mac 2 got me through my master's program. Okay. So anyway, so all of this kind of comes together on my website, and there's some artwork from the website. That artwork was originally done in Photoshop, but now I maintain it with GIMP. And the QR code there will take you to the website if you want to visit. If you do visit the website, please use the feedback link at the bottom in the copyright block at the bottom of every page, and let me know what you think. Okay, so I don't know how familiar everybody is with GIMP. It's the GNU Image Manipulation Program, and there's a description from Wikipedia of GNU if you're not familiar with GNU. It's probably the largest single source of free software for Unix.
General, something, GNU means something about free for everybody, right?
Well, that's what they stand for.
General,
Yeah,
so-
GNU stands for, it's a recursive anagram there. So GNU's not Unix, is what. But I think probably everybody's heard about Linux. If you install Linux on whatever computer you've got, most of the software is GNU software. Linux is the kernel, but pretty much everything else comes from GNU. Okay.
There was something called Darwin I fooled with. Is that related to GNU?
No, Darwin. Yeah, it's well, I don't know that much about Darwin. It's a Mac thing.
Yeah.
I know that, but beyond that, I'm
Yeah,
pretty vague.
buildings from all over the world, you have these pieces.
Yeah,
Well, Darwin existed before Apple adopted it, but
Yeah.
Apple went that way with
yeah.
the issues.
So anyway, so why do I use GIMP? It's free, which kind of will catch on with everybody. It's powerful, and it's popular, which I'll get to in a minute why being popular is important.
And it's open, right? People help each other.
Yes, lots. Anybody can contribute. I haven't. I just use it out of the box. Okay, and I can call it the cost of freedom. So you wind up with a user interface that's designed by programmers, and we won't get into why that's an issue, but it is. So these points here are, I think, an internet consensus about the interface, and I agree with all of it. They're unintuitive and clunky, but it works. And I understand that it's customizable, but I've not customized anything. I just install it as it comes and use it. Okay. It has documentation, so it's kind of a good news, bad news situation. There is a user's manual, which is good, but it's documentation written by volunteers, so it's pretty basic. But here's where popularity comes in. GIMP is so popular that if you have a question, you can just do an internet search on whatever it is you're having problems with, and you're going to come up with an answer. It may be from the manual, or it may be because somebody already asked the question and somebody posted an answer. But I've never.
Using AI, if you Google that question, AI should answer it for you instantly,
Yes.
right? You don't even
I,
have to search anymore.
yeah, I've not experienced that with GIMP. I've had pretty good luck with the AI overview in Google. But if you really need the answer, you better confirm it through some other source, because occasionally it'll give you something just totally off the wall. Probably the best story is some lawyer used Google AI to prepare his brief, and it was totally fictitious. It made up precedents that didn't exist. And when he presented it in court, the judge totally reamed him out. And like I said,
The thing, AI always gives you an answer. The question is the answer any good?
yes, and if you need the answer to be good, you need to confirm it that it's really good. But the search, just the basic search, will get you an answer. Sometimes you may have to ask your question different ways to get an answer. But I've never had a situation where there was something I couldn't figure out how to do with GIMP, and I couldn't find the answer with search. It works. It's worked every time for me. And
Can we ask it to give me artistic skills?
I never tried that. I'm kind of
As Jonesy and.
well. That's kind of like what the image manipulation stuff is with the AI. You can certainly ask it for something, and it will give you something, whether it's what you want or not. Something else. So, and the last thing is that GIMP doesn't have a photo library capability. I don't know that Photoshop has that either, but Lightroom does.
It's a separate app.
Okay, yeah. And you kind of have the same thing with GIMP. So there are photo library software that will connect with GIMP. Yes.
Does it interface with photos, the Mac photo library?
I have no idea.
I don't think it does.
It would be a little surprising, but I have not ever done that. My library is totally ad hoc, so basically it's kind of a combination of the file system, basically, and conventions that I follow. Okay, so I found a pretty extensive feature comparison on the web with that source that I listed there, and I don't tend to go through this in detail, but I just wanted to show that pretty much every feature that Photoshop has, GIMP has something addressing the same issue, maybe not as good, but it has something, with a couple of exceptions. So you see that on Smart Objects it says no. I'm not sure exactly what Smart Objects are, so not used that. Let's see, what else have we got? You may need a plug-in like on the AI stuff. Initially I thought GIMP didn't have AI, but that people have been adding it in. Let's see, what else do I want to say about this? So,
Layers are important. It does layers, I see.
yeah, and I use layers extensively. We'll see some layers when I do my little demo here. The one just plain no there is on CMYK support. And as I understand things, CMYK is important for commercial printing.
So it's just RGB only? Does it do Pantone or anything?
I don't know. I don't do commercial printing, so I don't know. But I'm guessing if you really care about CMYK, then you probably know what you need.
Cyan, magenta, yellow, and then what is K?
Black.
Huh?
Basically black and white. So the intensity. It's amazing if you dig into image processing. There are so many models, and they have so many different concepts for for what brightness means. And so K is related to that, but I don't know in detail.
So I'm seeing lots of things where GIMP is almost as good as Photoshop,
Yes,
but it's free.
yes,
Photoshop is not.
not free. That's right. And I've definitely found it to be good enough. Let's see what else. And here's the last comparison there.
A person, I want to say something encouraging the club. A person might say, I'm not an artist because I'm not an art critic, but I read in a book on typesetting that when artists get together, they talk about turpentine, not art critic stuff. So if you think you don't know art, well, learn about this turpentine.
Yeah.
GPU acceleration.
So I don't consider myself an artist. I'm a photographer, and I use GIMP to tweak up the photos. I don't create anything in GIMP. I just kind of
Touch it up.
improve it a little bit,
most of us
bring out the best. Say. And there's another no on GPU acceleration, which if you do a lot of stuff, that probably is important, but I've never had a performance issue. And anything you want to know about GIMP, you can find it at gimp.org. There's
When you take photos, what do you use? What is your preferred camera?
I use a Canon R6 Mark II. So it's not the top of the line, but it's a pretty good camera. So you can download it from gimp.org. You can find all the documentation there. There are tutorials. I don't know if they're good. I've never used a tutorial. Just kind of stumbled my way through it. Okay, see. Any questions about any of that before I actually get into showing how I use it?
Show us, yes.
Show us how you use it.
Okay, where are we at? Okay, so here's the main screen on GIMP. Let's see if I can find my photo.
How many operating systems does it work on?
Mac, Windows, Linux.
P, and there's all that counts, that matters.
Okay, let's see, let's zoom in on that a little bit. So this is a photo. Can I get rid of that over here on the side? How do I get rid of this side panel? See what that does. Okay, that's better.
This is coming from you. Mine should have that on there.
Where is this? It looks familiar to me.
This was taken at Gillespie's. I went away.
That's me, sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I had pizza there once.
Okay. Anyway, Gillespie's Tavern. It's on Bush near Jupiter in Richardson.
Oh.
And they have live music every weekend. So this is a picture that I took there fairly recently, and it's kind of terrible. Partly because the lighting is terrible there, and partly because this guy right here is sitting down behind his tablet. So I'm holding my camera over my head so I can get his face in the picture, and in the process of holding it over my head, I didn't have it very straight. So let's see what we're going to do with this. Okay, well, let's see. So somebody was mentioned layers, so we have layers over here on the right. Right now there's only one, but we'll have more before we're done. And then have a selection of tools over here on the left. We'll get to some of those. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do with this photo is I'm gonna straighten it up. And let's see, to straighten it up, first thing I need is I need a grid. So I'm going to, first I have to configure my grid. And I always like to have it, have lines every 50 pixels instead of 10. Okay, so now turn on the grid from the view here. Okay, so now I've got a grid I can align things with. So I do this, you can probably do this in one step if you know what you're doing, but I do it in 2 steps so I don't screw up things too terribly. So first we're gonna rotate the thing a little bit. So when we're here on the tools menu, and you can see we have a lot of tools that we can use. See, most of these I haven't used. Lots of selection tools and paint tools. I'm going to rotate it here. So transform tools, and then we've got a lot of transformations. Most of those are complicated, and you can really mess things up if you don't know what you're doing. So we're going to rotate. And let's see, what did I decide I wanted to do? So we're going to rotate that to the left a little bit. So, and what I'm doing here, so there's some paneling down here behind them, and I'm going to line up the edge of that paneling. I'm going to rotate it until that gets squared up.
Starting to turn.
Now this is, before I finish here, you'll notice these buttons are pretty tiny. So this is one of the clunky things about the interface. It's kind of hard to hit the buttons sometimes, and sometimes you think you're decreasing something when you're actually increasing it. But you get used to it. Okay, so that's got it. I think that's got it squared up pretty good. So let's do the rotate. Now, so I'm holding the camera over my head and pointing it down to get over the top of that tablet. And you'll see we've got converging verticals here. They're converging toward the bottom of the thing. We're going to work on that and use another tool, the perspective tool.
Perspective tool?
Yeah. Okay, and now I have to shrink my image that I'm working on because there are handles there that are behind that box at the upper right, and so I won't actually, until I shrink the image, I won't actually be able to get at the handles that I need to get to. And now it's a bit small to work on, but we can do it here. So basically, we're going to expand the bottom of the image, but I don't want to get too carried away with that. And what works for me is as to keep things balanced, as I expand things at one end, I contract them a little bit at the other. Now then we have to look real close to see if we're getting, so you can see the window panels there, the dividers between them. We align them with the grid lines. And I'm squinting at the screen to see how we're doing here. We're getting there. Okay.
It reminds me of a tool in Adobe Scan. We adjust the page to make it rectilinear rather than perspective.
Let's see.
And it's all visual, it's not clunky programming.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. And now we hit transform and lock it in. Okay. Now I don't need the grid anymore.
Oh, good.
We'll hide that. And let's see, take a look here and see what we've got. So it's now getting squared up, but it's kind of dark. Actually, the faces here are about right in my opinion, but the dark parts are very dark. So we're gonna fix that up. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go colors, and again, lots and lots of tools, some of which you're very familiar with. I'm sure brightness, contrast, everybody knows about that. But there's a bunch of other ways of hitting it, but for my purposes, I'm gonna go to curves. So I use curves a lot. Something I've learned over time is that beginners are kind of scared of the curves dialogue, but you can do things here that you just can't do anywhere else. So let's see what we're gonna do here. We're gonna brighten things up at the dark end here a bit. So let's see. So you can kind of see back there that things are getting brighter. Let's not get too carried away with these things. Now that brightened up the dark areas pretty good. But now some of the bright areas are getting maybe a little too bright. So we're gonna bring that back down a little bit. So that doesn't look too bad. Let's take that.
That's interesting.
Okay, that's looking better. Okay, I screwed up. I didn't know that.
Is that called curves?
Curves, yeah, curves dialogue. So the curve is the x-axis is the original value of each brightness level, and the y-axis is the level you want to change it to. And that produces a curve there. Okay, I need to go. I forgot to duplicate this thing so we could do comparison. Let's get rid of that. And now I'm going to reopen the original image here. Okay. So this is the original image, and there's what we've got it to so far. So I think that's a lot better. Okay.
If you were to open curves again, would it now be a straight diagonal line one more time?
Yes.
So you can't revert back to?
Not from the curves dialog. You can revert back from over here. We've got a number of things here, but we have got an undo history, so we could. I could go back and uncurve things
That way.
from history.
Okay.
Okay, so well, I'm liking this pretty good, but this lady over here on the right, because basically all the light's coming from this fixture up here, and she's a little bit more forward. She's a little dark, so we're going to work on her a little bit. So let me go over here, and I'm going to create another level. Basically, I'm going to duplicate that level layer. Okay, so now I'm going to work on this. So basically, we're going to brighten her up. But we're just paying attention to the lady on the right. So let's see. Okay. I guess I was going to do that at a different time. Let me see what my notes say here. Yeah, okay. So let's, kind of to keep track of things, let's rename this layer here. Let me rename it to Betsy. That's the lady's name. Okay, for this, we're just going to do something simple. So we just go over here to colors again and brightness, contrast. And we're going to take the brightness up here a little bit, again with the tiny buttons. Okay. And right now, like I said, we're only paying attention here. So let's maybe take the contrast up some. Okay. And now we can turn off the preview here to see how we're getting along. I think we'll go with that. Okay. So I've got the original on the left and then a different thing on the right. Now we need to blend these together. So I'm going to create a new layer down here, and I'm going to call this layer mask. So this is my mask. It's eventually going to be a layer mask. And should have filled that. So let's go over here to edit, and let's fill that with a foreground color. Okay, so now I've basically just got a black layer that's eventually going to be my mask. So I'm going to reduce the opacity on that over here down to something I can, something so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, and now okay, now then we're gonna over here to the tools, and we're going to pick the gradient tool, which I don't actually see over here on my screen at home. There's a gradient tool over here, but we can get it over here on the tools menu. I think. Let's see. Paint tools. Gradient. So we've got a gradient tool. Okay. Now then, so basically between these two ladies, I need to blend from one to another. So we're going to create a gradient here. Okay, so now I've got my gradient. Now then I need to take my opacity back up to 100%. Okay, so that's going to be my mask, but I need to get it where I can use it. So there's probably an easier way of doing this, but this way I understand what I'm doing. So we're going to pop over here to the channels thing, and so any of these.
Trial and error for you to come up with this?
It is, yes. I tried to figure out a quicker way of doing it, and I never could remember how it worked from one time to the next. So this is a way that I remember how it works. So now any of these color layers are just the same. So I'm going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to take this channel and turn it into the selection. And you can see the dotted line there. That's basically where it goes from, basically that's where it turns to gray. Okay, so now I've got it in the selection. So I'm going to go back to my layers, and now I'm done with my mask, and we're going to.
She looks brighter.
Yeah.
I think she's brighter.
Yes, that was the whole point of the exercise. So now I'm going to use this mask to combine these two layers, and I'm going to add a layer mask here, and I want it from the selection that I went through the process to get. So we add that. So now, basically, the only part of this layer that we're seeing is the part on the right because it's got a layer mask. So we can see there's the original, well, after we corrected some things, and then that's adding her. Okay, so now with these two layers, I've got pretty much what I want. So let's, where are we at? We want to unselect that. Okay, now how are we doing here? So one last thing I want to do is I want to sharpen things up a bit. So So overall, this scene is pretty dark, so the camera was using a pretty wide aperture, which means that the whole thing can't be in focus. So, so I'm going to sharpen up some stuff here, and let's see, I need to do that. Well, the way I do it is I always do it at 100%. So we're zoomed into 100%. And the reason I do this, if you over sharpen, you introduce artifacts. It'll get sharper, but it will not be real. And so I do it at 100% so I don't overdo it. So let's get down here to some faces so we can kind of see what we're doing. And we go over here to, go away, over here to filters, enhance, and sharpen. So now I'm going to increase the amount. And let's see, kind of just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to crank it way up. Actually, I'm still not seeing the artifacts. Okay, let's turn the preview off. Okay. Okay, let's see. Cancel that for a second. Okay. Basically, what it's doing here, it's only sharpening this layer before we, before I get into sharpening the whole thing, I need to merge these layers so that
Good idea.
Can you sharpen a piece at a time, just in case? You don't want to make a blanket mistake all over the place.
Yeah, well, you can undo. So from the history menu, you can always undo. And yeah, you can edit different pieces in different layers and then combine them later. And I'm about to combine right now. So I pick this layer here, and then I will back here. Where's the merge? Yeah, I want to merge down. So basically, this button is going to merge this layer with the layer below it. Okay, so now I've got just one layer there. Now let's go back and sharpen so we can see what we're doing.
They don't use the word wean that I learned in 1975. They don't use that anymore. Wean filter.
Yeah, I don't
To
recognize
avoid
that.
artifacts.
Yeah, okay.
Things have progressed since 1975.
Yeah, okay, let's get back. Here we can see our face. Now let's start cranking up the amount. There, and let's see what we get. Okay, so you can see that we're getting sharper. Let's see, I don't,
Yeah.
actually, if you look at the lamp over here, and I'll go preview and back and front, see this black halo around it? That's an artifact from sharpening.
Mark bands, I think they call them.
Yeah, so we don't want to do that.
That's dynamic range stuff.
Yeah. Well, unlike what you see when they enhance photos on TV shows, you can't create information that's not there. Yes, it's called hallucination. So we're gonna back this off a little bit.
Now, is this photo, excuse me, this photo's not raw, is it? It was JPEG, right?
It's JPEG here. Actually, I'm not trying to remember what I did.
But it can use raw, right?
No, at least I don't know that it can. There may be a plugin that will allow you to do raw. What I do is I use the raw extractor software from Canon for the camera that I've got, and I will use that to convert the raw to a JPEG. And I usually, when I do that, I usually do some corrections in the raw extractor. So I'll do white balance and maybe some brightness corrections there before I turn it into JPEG, and then take it into
I
into
saw
GIMP.
something on a control panel where you had RGB and alpha in there. You can control that, the colors.
Well, you can do anything you can figure out how to do, you can do it. I try not to get too carried away. So, so if you do a good job as a photographer, you don't have to do very much in GIMP.
There you go.
Okay, so that's sharpened up a bit. Okay, so now here's our image, and come on, go away.
It's a pretty big JPEG image.
Yeah, well,
Supposed to be compressed.
yeah, so the R6 actually isn't the highest resolution camera that Canon makes, but the raw image is 6,000 by 4,000, 24 meg, which is more resolution than I need. So I'll wind up sharing this on the web, and the maximum dimension I have on the web is 800.
Now, when you export this, does it give you the ability to size it?
Yes.
When I say that, some of the software, it says, it'll say, if you want to put it on the web, then it'll shrink it down to the proper web size. Does that do it?
You can do that here. I don't usually do that in GIMP, but you can definitely, well, actually I do. Yeah, when you export it, you can say,
What size you want?
yeah, actually I'd size it and then export it, but yes, you can do that. Okay, let's see, how are we doing here?
Any chance it opens 360 files?
I don't know. I've never done that.
But if there's a plug-in, then there's probably a plug-in for it, like you said.
There very likely is, yeah. Okay, what am I doing here? Okay, one last thing I want to do here. It turned out there's a blemish on the wall at the pub, or there was. I think maybe they finally fixed it. Somebody had stuck something up there, and then when they pulled it down, it took off some of the covering there. But we can deal with that. So let's zoom in. Okay, let's see. Let's scroll over to our problem. Okay, let's zoom in one more
Right there?
time. So there's,
Then how to do that?
okay.
Lawrence, why'd you do that?
Okay, so now we're going to use the clone tool here. So
Lawrence was one of those kids there and watch movies and you throw the little gummy bears on the stick on the
Yeah.
screen.
so let's see. That's okay. So
Clone tool.
I'm using the clone tool. Now we need to. If you're using the clone tool, then you need to make sure you need to get the right brush for doing it. So it uses the brushes, and let's see. So the size is about right, and the hardness is about right. So let's see if I don't know if you can barely see that image of the brush there, but it smoothly blends into the surroundings. So that's our brush. So we need to pick a spot here on the wall that's about the same brightness as around the spot. So we'll
Option click, shift click, command click.
command click on the Mac, and now we'll just kind of brush it out there. Okay, fix that. Probably
It seems to have a texture on it as well.
right. The clone tool will, if it's textured, the clone tool will actually clone the texture. And there are other tools, but
And there's no seams.
right, that's because the brush was smooth.
Yeah.
When I prepared this image for the web, I didn't even bother with this spot on the wall. but you can certainly obviously do it. And there are other tools for that kind of thing. There's a thing called the healing brush, which I don't really have a good idea about how to do it. Sounded like it's sort of for like removing wrinkles in old folks'
Yeah, I want the one
faces.
that says remove 20 years.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but there's probably a plug-in for it. Anyway. So now we can
Much
crop
better picture.
first let's compare this back and forth. I'm pretty, the first time I went through this, I was amazed at just how much better I could make this photo look. So there's the original, and here's what we've got.
Hey, very good.
I was happy to share that on the web, where the original I wouldn't have been, and so we can use the.
Is your background Irish, or do you just like the music?
Celtic.
Both. To begin with, I got into it just because I like the music. And I like the people in the community and everything. But my mom did a bunch of genealogy research and took it back pretty far. So according to her research, I'm descended from Brian Boru, one of the first kings of Ireland.
Wow.
But I'm also related to some Scottish folks too. So, and now let's size this up a little bit here.
Blessed are you, God in you.
Okay, and that's our final image there. Let's crop that down. Crop the selection. And
Yeah.
there's our final image.
Now, while I often don't like the way it chooses in Photoshop, a lot of times I'll start off with auto color. Does it have an auto color option on it?
It does. It's got a number of auto tools, and let's see. Well, I have a couple more things I can run through, but I think that probably gives you a pretty good idea how things work. Sure. But one of the auto tools that I was surprised at on the white balance. So I typically do correct white balance in the raw extractor, but I can show how the white balance works in GIMP, and it has an auto white balance, which surprised me at just how good it was.
Jonesy, did you have things you wanted to cover in the Mac help desk SIG?
Nothing, that can't wait till next month.
So you're okay with continuing on?
Okay.
Step on your SIG notes. Sure.
All right. Okay, so I'll go on to the next one here, since it actually came up. Okay. So, well, I'm not going to save that because I already did. Okay, so, and discard all the changes. Get rid of that. Okay. So now,
I think working up a lecture to us might be clunky, but when you give the lecture, it sounds intuitive to me.
oh yeah, well, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so here's another picture I also took at Gillespie's. And so my camera, and most modern cameras have auto white balance. So the camera itself tries its best to get it right. But on tight shots, it sometimes gets confused. And so this one is too red. And it's kind of like, so one thing you can do, if you know what you want to do, you can just do it. So, so that shot was obviously too red, so we can just decrease the red. Let's see what Yeah. So let's,
Isn't that what RAW does? You have different colors and different, on different screens? And you can pick
Yeah.
the colors with the
Yeah.
AI too?
yeah.
So you have
And I-
sRGB, but you also have some that are expanded color profiles.
What's the one where they use it as like a reference monitors? Yeah.
Right, usually it's kind of like almost like a circle-ish
Yeah.
triangle that shows you the colors that are.
There's a way to encode pictures that gets more dynamic range.
Outside of that spectrum.
well, the raw basically records exactly what came off the sensor.
Yeah,
So it's basically got everything there.
but there's a new way of coding that I heard
Yeah.
about, but I don't know much about yet.
Okay.
And I wrote Apple to check into it.
Okay. Now then, let's go back and do that again.
Okay, I think we've seen it.
Did you say this Gillespie's is in Richardson?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's approximately at George Bush and Jupiter.
Okay.
So like Friday and Saturday nights and have stuff?
Yes. It's not always Celtic. There's just not enough Celtic bands around to do every week. But most weekends will be something Celtic there. Okay.
My husband's name is Logan for the Logan clan.
Okay, so here's what I did just by reducing the red and before and after. So that actually is not a bad way to go about it, but let's look at some other ways of doing it here. Okay, let's undo that. Oops, not to undo that. Okay, another way you can approach this, and this is very much like the way I would do it in the raw extractor. On the levels menu, it took me a while to figure out where this option was, but you can pick the gray point here in the image. For example, so she's got this sort of Santa hat on, and it's got a white fluff here at the end of it here, which should be gray. So I can pick that. Come on, pick that. Okay. Why didn't it do that? Well, I'm sure I could figure out. I don't understand why it's not doing it, but
Is it unselecting it when you click it?
well,
You got it selected.
I think I've got it selected. It should, when I click it in the image here, it should make that gray and then unselect the tool.
Presentation got to
And something isn't working.
It did unselect the tool.
Yes, it did, but I don't understand why it's not fixing the image there.
Maybe you picked on the perfect gray.
Well, but it isn't. It isn't the perfect gray. Well, imagine that worked. Yeah. And I've got the layer that I want to work on is visible. Well, as it turns out, there is, when I was rehearsing this, there is no perfect gray in this image.
Okay.
So the way I would normally do it in the raw extractor doesn't work. And I probably corrected it in the raw extractor by just lowering the red directly, which you can do in the raw extractor. So, but there's another tool here that's available from levels. You can say, notice the auto,
That's an easy button.
and you just click it. And it does, I think it did a really good job on that. So,
It doesn't look
so
reddish
it's,
anymore.
so something I learned preparing the presentation is that if I can't correct the white balance in the raw extractor, then I can do it in GIMP probably. Though I haven't done this enough to know if it always works, but in the sample images, it worked pretty well. Okay.
Pretty good.
And another way to get at the auto is from colors. You can select colors and notice there's an auto. And you can auto the white balance. Nope. And there we go.
Yeah, it's nice.
Okay, let's see, how are we doing? Okay, and I've got one more. We want to go ahead with that, I guess we will. So let me open the other image. Where are we at? Okay. Now, I've already corrected a few things before, but what I wanted to show in here is kind of a magic trick that I like. So I think this image has got too much contrast. So I want to tame that. And let's see how I want to do that. And so what we're going to do, this is a technique called contrast mask. And it actually was started back in film days. It's a darkroom trick to do a contrast mask. But you can basically do the same thing digitally these days. So first we're going to duplicate this layer. And now make sure it's selected. And now we go to colors and we desaturate it. Basically, we turned it into black and white. And now we're going to invert it. So we're back to basically where we would be with a negative. And now we're going to blur it. So we're going to do a Gaussian blur. And I find this is a thing that would probably be a matter of taste. I find that around 20 works pretty well. Okay, so there we got that. And now I wave my magic wand and I go over here to the mode. So basically this is the mode that controls how the two images are blended. So, and we're going to, and that's not the mode that I wanted.
Artistic.
Yes.
You want to blend the negative and the positive?
Yes, and so this is an example of where the clunky interface comes in. So I expected, when I clicked that, I expected the menu to stay, and it didn't.
So now you have to hold it down.
I have to hold it down and drag to where I want, and it's overlay. Dunk. Now I've definitely reduced the contrast. Unfortunately, I've reduced it way much. So we're going to take down the opacity on this layer. And again, this is a matter of taste. I usually go down to somewhere around 30. So let's get down to around 30. So we're getting down, there's 35, which is maybe okay. And there's 30. We can check to see how we're doing here. That's not bad. Let's go down to 25 and see how we're doing.
Now, on the right side, you have layers. What is this on the left side?
That's the history.
Okay, so it's just history, all right. So everything that you've done, it just makes the history of it so you can go back.
Right, so I can, yeah, if I did something disastrous, then I just undo it.
Yeah, nice.
The more sophisticated way is to create layers make changes in layers, and if you don't like it, then you can do away with that layer and you keep the changes that you liked.
Is Command Z the go back one step?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's just like Photoshop.
Anyway, so there's our reduced contrast. Now another way, let's turn that off. Another way to do contrast is again go to curves. So basically this has got contrast, too high contrast because the darks are too dark and the brights are too bright. Well, that's what we've got a curves menu for, curves dialog.
Yes.
So we can make the darks brighter and the brights darker. And let's see, let's go down here, let's get where we can see our image a little better. And then we can see that we've accomplished a lot the same thing.
Wow.
Anyway, I think that'll give you an idea about working with GIMP.
Is there an easy way to remove the shine off of his left cheek?
Say again?
The shine, you see how his left cheek is
It's got the colors in it.
right on it, so it's kind of, it almost glares.
Clone tool probably do that.
Heal it.
Oh,
Yeah, heal it.
Yeah.
well, you can certainly try it. That sort of thing, I think, is where AI comes to the fore. And I've never tried using any of the AI tools, so I don't know.
There are AI tools in
And
GIMP.
one of the things
right?
about,
There are some plugins that bring
one
in
of the
some
pros about this whole thing, one of the biggest pros, it's free.
free. That's the biggest pro. Well, it wouldn't matter if it didn't work, but yes, free is a very big deal.
Cool job. Thank you, Steve.
Mm-hmm.